As I stood there in the kitchen, my knuckles grew white from the tight grip my hands had on the edge of the counter. As usual, Jillian sat serenely at the table, sipping her tea as if nothing were amiss. She casually dropped the bomb without even looking up. By the way, Camille's wedding is family, but she believes it would be easier if you don't show up. I felt my insides contort, my breath taken away, leaving the room less uncomfortable for the person I had been with throughout. I sat by her bed with a cold cloth every late night when she had a fever, every skinned knee, and every ballet class. Even when money was tight, I paid. Every breakup, I consoled her when she felt like everything was going to end. Now, the wedding of my own daughter, the day I'd imagined myself walking her down the aisle ever since she was a tiny girl, was finally here, and I wasn't even on the list. "I'm her father," I said, my voice coming low and trembling, as if I were attempting to persuade myself that it still meant something. Jillian simply shrugged, her gaze fixed on her tea. "You're overreacting. It's just a wedding. Just a wedding. My daughter's wedding." The words hit me like a punch. I wanted to scream at her, to turn the tables, to let her know how much it hurt, but I kept it to myself, as I always did. I glanced at her, waiting for something. Anything. Some proof that she cared. Nothing came. She took another sip, and that was it. I turned away, my chest tight. I walked into the living room. My laptop was sitting there on the couch, and before I knew it, I started typing. Santorini, a week-long journey, far away from this house, from Jillian's shrugs, from the sting of being erased by my own baby. I didn't tell Jillian what I was doing. She didn't deserve to know. I just booked the flight, the villa, the whole thing. My fingers moved rapidly like I was rushing to get out before I broke down. When it was done, I sat back and let out a big sigh. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to plead to be included. If they wanted me there, fine, but I'd go where I could breathe again. The next morning, I packed a bag. Nothing extravagant, just some shirts, shorts, my old sandals, and I left a note on the counter. "Gone for a week. Don't call unless it's an emergency." I didn't even glance back when I shut the door. The journey to the airport felt like shedding, a weight I'd been carrying for years. I kept replaying Jillian's remarks in my head. Less odd. Every time it made my jaw clench. How might it be strange to have me there? I raised Camille. I was the one who stayed up all night building that dollhouse she wanted for Christmas when she was 6. The one who drove her to every recital. The one who told her she was enough when some guy destroyed her heart in high school. And now what? I was the outsider. By the time I boarded the plane, I was done thinking about it. The buzz of the engines muffled the noise in my thoughts. I gazed out the window. Suddenly, the ground slid away. Santorini was waiting. Blue water. White buildings. A place where I could be someone other than the guy who wasn't good enough for his own family. I didn't know what I'd find there. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them ruin me. Not Jillian. Not Camille. Not anyone. I'd spent too long being the one who held it all together while everyone took me for granted. As the plane climbed higher, I felt something shift inside me. Not peace. Not yet, but a spark of something new. I wasn't on their list, but I was still here, and I was going to figure out what that meant. One day at a time. Starting now. Taking that first step off the plane. Into a world that didn't know how terribly I was feeling. Sand beach. Letting the waves smash me around till I was too weary to think. Now, with a bottle of cool white wine in my fingers, I felt good. Better than excellent, like I was finally settling into this new version of myself. The phone buzzed against the table, and I saw Rose's name flash up. I almost didn't answer, didn't want anything disrupting this moment, but something told me to pick up. "Hey," I said, leaning back in the chair. She didn't even say hello, simply started laughing so hard I could barely make out her words. "Oh, my God, you missed a show," she eventually managed, her voice cracking with glee. And honestly, it was amazing watching them discover what life is like without you keeping everything glued together. I laid the wine down, a grin tugging at my mouth, and listened as she spilled it all. After the wedding fell apart, things got worse. Camille had a full meltdown in front of the guests, tears streaming, mascara running, when Bryce walked out, leaving her standing there in her huge white dress. Jillian attempted to play it off, fluttering around with that tight smile. But Rose claimed you could see the panic in her eyes. She kept looking for someone to fix it, someone to take responsibility. And then it hit her. The only one who ever did that was me? And I was 3,000 miles away. Rose cackled through the phone, painting the picture. Colin slurring words at the bartender, Noel whispering loud enough for everyone to hear that it was Jillian's fault. The DJ packing up early, because no one was dancing. They didn't know what to do without you, Rose said, gathering her breath. It was like watching ants when you kick the hill. I speared a piece of octopus with my fork and chewed leisurely, letting her words sink in. I wasn't surprised. Not really. I'd always been the glue, the one who held solid when everyone else lost it. Birthday parties, holidays, conflicts over money. I was the guy who made sure the lights stayed on and the yelling ceased. And now, without me, they'd crumbled. I didn't feel sorry for them. I felt satisfied. Maybe, like karma had finally shown up right on time. Camille cried for an hour. Rose went on. Jillian kept repeating, "He should have been here," like that would have saved the day. But you know what? They didn't want you there until they needed you. She paused, then added, "I'm proud of you for staying gone." I swallowed the dish, the tangy lemon cutting through the richness, and took a sip of wine. "Yeah," I said, my voice low. "Me too." We talked a bit more, about her kids, about the weather back home, and then hung up. I lay there, the night settling around me, the sound of the waves mixing with the clink of plates from the kitchen. The restaurant was half empty, just a few, locals conversing over beers, and I liked how small it felt, how far away from everything I'd abandoned. I envisioned Camille in her dress, sobbing, Jillian spinning her reasons. And for the first time, it didn't hurt. It didn't pull me back. It simply made me glad I was here, eating this food, drinking this wine, living this life they didn't get to touch. I finished the meal, relishing. Every bite. The shrimp, salty and sweet. The fish, flaky and tender. The server gave me another glass of wine without me asking, and I nodded my appreciation. The bill arrived. I paid in cash, giving a hefty tip because I could. I walked back, to the villa under a sky full of stars, the road snaking along the cliff, my sandals scuffing the stones. When I arrived, I kicked them off, poured one more glass from the bottle on the counter, and stepped onto the balcony. The sea was black now, infinite, and I stood there, letting the breeze cool my skin. Rose's laugh rang in my thoughts, and I smiled, genuinely grinned, the type that reaches your eyes. I went to bed with that sensation. The covers were cold against me, and I slept deeper than I had in years. They'd figured out what I was worth, but I'd figured it out too. And I wasn't handing it back.